Fighting in hockey, you know, is nothing new. I mean, as we've been hearing, a lot of people who play or watch it consider it part of the game. We know Mario Lemieux was talking about the fighting in that one particular game on Friday night. And my next guest says Lemieux's point is well taken. Andrew Rodger says the NHL needs to do more to stop those bench-clearing brawls. Andrew, by the way, is a columnist for the HockeyWriters.com, and he joins me from Ottawa. All right, can you even clean up this game, Andrew?
Well, I think it can be cleaned up. I think it's something when a player like, well, now an owner, someone like Mario Lemieux, who's a Stanley Cup champion and an Olympic gold medalist and a Hall of Famer, speaks out. It's certainly headline news, and it's the type of headline that the NHL certainly doesn't want. So it's going to force them to take a look at themselves and see which direction they can go with this situation.
But they've already come out. I mean, what was it? Bill Daly, the NHL deputy commissioner, said the league, his wording, I think, was entirely comfortable with the way things were handled. Doesn't sound to me like they're afraid of any headlines.
Yeah, well, that's true. I think the NHL is comfortable with the way they handled it after the fact, but I think they certainly could have done things differently beforehand. For example, this goes back to a game a week before between the Penguins and the Islanders, and there's the famous, now famous goalie fight between Brent Johnson and Rick DiPietro. And so coming into this game on Friday evening, the Islanders called up a player from the American Hockey League who has almost 200 penalty minutes in the league down there. So he was brought up for one reason and one reason only, and that was to be involved in basically as many fights as possible for retribution.
Yeah, but you know, people say there's a difference between legal fighting and illegal fighting. I don't know. I've watched my kids grow up playing hockey. I just think fighting is fighting, period. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's fighting, it's been in the game, forever, and it certainly has its place. It can change the momentum of a game, and it is good, for team chemistry for players to stick up for their teammates. But one of the issues the league is facing, and they've been discussing for the past few years, is the issue of staged fighting, where we're seeing at the drop of a puck fights for no real reason. A few weeks ago, the Boston Bruins were facing the Dallas Stars. In the first 4 seconds of the game, there were 3 fights. That's, whatever your view of fighting is, that borders on the ridiculous.
There are some people who say that fighting is one of the strategies of the NHL to bring in fans. I don't know if you've heard that, but I'm wondering if it would work as a strategy.
It does to some degree. It would probably, someone who's already a sports fan, like a diehard fan of the NFL or some of the high-impact sports, they would certainly be drawn into the NHL, perhaps because of the fighting. But as you want to grow your sport, especially in the United States, it's the casual sports fan that you're looking to attract. And I think the fighting is turning off some people, especially when it gets as gratuitous as it was on Friday evening.
You know, you talk about building chemistry. I watched the Super Bowl. Millions of people did. I didn't see fighting on the field in the Super Bowl. I watch baseball. It's rare you see a fight in baseball. Those teams still have chemistry. Somebody wins a pennant. Somebody wins a Super Bowl. You're telling me hockey's a different beast?
It is. Well, actually, baseball is sort of taken over from hockey for having the bench-clearing brawls. There's actually quite a few each season in that regard. But hockey it's a high-impact sport with elite athletes and lots of pressure, especially in today's NHL with the way the standings are. There's very few points in difference from the top to bottom in the standings. So I think it does have a role in the chemistry, because unlike other sports, there's no out-of-bounds area. You're confined onto the rink surface, and so guys are getting hit hard, and harder than ever before.
And speaking of being hit hard, we got to bring in the word concussion here. I remember doing a documentary, Andrew, years ago about the cumulative effects of concussions. Is that going to be part of the discussion, you think, the fighting and what it leads to?
Well, I think it definitely has to be, because that's actually what is starting a lot of these fights, is the fact that hits that are leading to severe injuries for players. And concussions is really it's almost we'd almost need a whole other segment to discuss it. I've done a lot of research and writing as well too on the long-term effects. And it's one thing to have a few knee injuries in your career, but when you start having several concussions, it really is life-altering, and it can be a life and death situation for some athletes.
So what are you watching for? What do you think it's going to take for the league to come in and maybe change something?
Well, I think every summer the NHL started since the lockout with their competition committee, and so I think this summer they'll certainly the fighting as well as concussions will be a hot topic at those meetings, and we may finally see the end of the instigator rule, which has automatic penalties for a player that comes into the aid of a teammate. The players, the recent poll that was stated that 98% of the players are for fighting in the league. It seems they want to be able to police themselves, and you know, like Wayne Gretzky always had Dave Semenko or Marty McSorley there as his you know, as his line mate for that protection. And so I think if you were able to police the situation immediately, you know, amongst the players, it might put an end to these long simmering feuds where we're seeing teams playing each other a few weeks, you know, close together a few times, and you know, creating these sort of situations where it's a bloodbath.
Rodger or Andrew, we're always good to talk to you. I thank you for taking the time.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Hockey columnist Andrew Rodger joining me from Ottawa. Well, you, our viewers, saying a lot about Lemieux's comments. After all, what gets Canadians fired up more than hockey? Maybe the weather. We do get fired up about that. But Genevieve Tommy is looking at hockey and some of your thoughts. She joins me now. What are you hearing? What are you seeing on the web from our viewers,
Well,
Genevieve?
Suhanna, people are definitely fired up about hockey this morning. I can tell you that our inbox is jam-packed with comments from people talking about this game on Friday night and what it means for hockey. So let's get right to them. This first one comes to us from Elizabeth, who says, yes, stop the violence. It is long overdue. Hockey should not be about violent, cheap thrills of people fighting to cater to the segment of the population who want to see players getting hurt. They are not gladiators. They are people earning a huge salary for their ice skills. Is this what children and young athletes should be watching and participating in? Is there not enough violence in the world without teaching it with the use of enforcers and plain aggression to the next generation in the guise of a sport? Next one from Dwayne. Hockey is a rough game, and as long as it's played fairly, it's a fast, beautiful game. Think about hockey at the Olympic level. We all watched it and enjoyed it without the fights. This is so simple to fix. We fine and suspend aggressive players for headshots and malicious injury. Next one comes to us from Will, saying what happened in that hockey game was an epic failure on the part of the players, coaches, and the league. All the while, the arena sound system pumped out blaring fight music in support of the violent spectacle. And finally, from John, saying, I was playing pickup hockey on an outside rink yesterday. A fight broke out between a goalie with full equipment and an opposing forward. When the other players chastised the fighters, they both responded that goalies fight in the NHL, so it's okay to do. Stop the fighting in hockey. So a lot of people there, and it's reflective of what we've been hearing, agreeing with Mario Lemieux's comments that the NHL needs to crack down harder. We're looking for all of your comments here at CBC. The question is it time for the NHL to change its attitude toward fighting? Email us at pov@cbc.ca. We'll be here reading your answers all afternoon. Suhanna.
Thank you, Genevieve.